Hello, my name's Martin Jakeman and welcome to The Flavour of History, a channel dedicated to exploring the flavours of times gone by. In our first series we're going to be looking at the works of Mrs Beeton. Now Isabella Beeton was a Victorian lady most famous for her 1112 page book, The Guide to Household Management. So popular that it sold 60,000 copies in its first year of publication alone. For today we're going to be using her later edition, which is the Shilling Guide, where we get our first recipe, Hodge-Podge. For this recipe, in which we're going to be making in half measures, you're going to need 1 pound of beef shin, 1 chopped turnip, 1 chopped carrot, half a chopped head of celery, 1 diced onion. You're also going to need 1.5 quarts of water, which is around 1.7 litres, and half a pint of beer. You're also going to need some salt and pepper for seasoning, and some butter and flour for thickening it up later on. Now I can get my hands on a table beer, which is what the recipe asks for, because this comes from a time where drinking a weak beer was much safer than drinking water. Instead, I have gone for the Fuller's 1845 blend. They say, while celebrating their 150th birthday, that they hark back to their traditional recipes of this time. So I thought it might be perfect to adding into our Hodge-Podge. The first thing the recipe asks us to do now is to add the meat, our beer, and our water. We now need to take it over to our cooker and we're going to simmer it for a while before adding in our vegetables to then stew until the meat is nice and tender. So what we're doing at the moment is that as the slag as such comes to the top, or the scum, we're just going to scrape it off as we go to ensure it doesn't get all mixed up with it later. So that's it now, been simmering for a few minutes. I'm now going to add in our seasoning, our vegetables, and then we're just going to let it stew. Now you may have noticed that I've actually had to split it into 2 pans because everything was already too large for the first one. So if I'm going to do this again, I'm probably going to actually take it down to 1/4 of the original recipe, because Mrs Beeton was actually writing for massive households. So in with some pepper, a pinch of salt in each, and then we're going to try and divide our vegetables up. So that's now everything in. All that's left to do, give it a quick stir and wait for the meat to be nice and tender and the vegetables to be cooked. We'll do a bit of a balancing act then with the flour and the butter to really thicken it up. We'll serve it up and then you can see the finished product. And here we go. Here is the finished product. On the side I've baked some rolls, again from a Mrs Beeton recipe, and I'm going to cover those in a future video. The vegetables and the meat have both been stewed really nicely, and the flavours as well really complement each other. The butter and the flour, I actually sifted off all of the juices in which we had from the boiling and mixed those up and in together and then poured it back on, sieving out any small lumps of flour that I really couldn't get to break down. Overall, really nice recipe, quite straightforward and simple. Thank you very much for watching the video, and do join us again next time as once again we explore the flavours of times gone by as we get the taste of history. Thank you.